let's start maybe with Mr. Modi. So, how would you say, Mr. Modi is? So, we are taking Mr. Modi as a brand. Obviously, Narendra Modi is a brand, and so what has been that unique thing? Obviously, the a priori assumption over here that I'm making is that Narendra Modi as a brand is successful. Now, in my view, the only gauge of judging the
He's
success
won
of
two
the brand,
elections, so he's obviously successful.
yeah, that's the only way I could have judged it, right? So, and his brand value keeps on transferring in many state and at times municipal elections too. So that's my a priori assumption over here. So let's talk about Mr. Modi. So where do you think brand Modi ticks in all the right boxes in that sense?
People trust him to deliver and be a problem solver. The surround system around him is hard work, aggression, decisiveness, decision making in the face of being unpopular. For instance, when the whole lockdown, the Janta lockdown happened, he comes across as a tough leader. Remember one thing: people want leaders to be inspirational. They want their leaders to be hardworking because they think कि भाई देश के लिए कर रहा है. Number three, his whole ecosystem, and he's a very smart consummate marketer. He realizes what has happened in the years preceding his prime ministership. Look at where we were. And sometimes it's by chance, sometimes it's his luck, whatever it is. India was seen in very poor light across the world. When Manmohan Singh Ji's second term happened, people had begun to even worsen their attributional, likability of politicians. People said, oh, they're all bloody corrupt, 2G, yeah, well, all of that happened. You were living in a country where you hated not only the political system, there was a missing of what I call self esteem. What did Modi do? He brought back the self esteem. Today, an editor who I had lunch with, R. Sukumar of Hindustan Times, made a very interesting point, and I must give him credit for that. He says what Modi did was he solved first generation problems. What are first generation problems? कुशल मेहरा के घर में पानी नहीं आ रहा, उनने पानी दिया. कुशल
Exactly.
मेहरा के घर में चूल्हा है और गैस नहीं है, उनने आपको गैस दी. कुशल मेहरा के घर में दवाई नहीं थी, उनने आपको दवाई दी. कुशल मेहरा अगर he was below the poverty line or whatever, the direct benefit went to him. Look at what Modi did. He didn't own the IP, but he yet delivered. Manrega was Congress. He began to own it. Uniform Civil Code, Congress. He owned it. CAA, Congress. He owned it. Article 370 being discussed for ages. He owned it. So, leadership is also about risk taking. So, what people have realized is this man is trustworthy because he keeps his word. People are willing to forgive. Please understand, you made a very interesting point about his personal popularity. But his popularity dipped terribly in April of 2021 when the oxygen issue happened. What did he do? He did not say a word. He kept silent. There was no media commentary. But he whipped industry into shape. He pleaded with them, whatever, whatever, whatever. And I have to give credit. Reliance was the first company off the bat. Mukesh Ambani moved to Jamnagar. He ensured that industrial production of oxygen was halted and that medical grade oxygen was produced. And then lots of people followed. What did Modi tell the Indian? If I'm your prime minister, you are safe. Whether it's Pulvana, whether it's, settling scores with whoever, blah, blah, blah. He has told you that, look, main hoon. People need sahanbhuti. They also need saheliyat. But most importantly, they need कि भाई मैं इस आदमी पे भरोसा कर सकता हूं. वो जो भरोसे की बात है वो मोदी जी पे है. अब आप उनके सारे जो एट्रीब्यूट्स हैं आप एनालाइज कीजिए. क्वा राहुल गांधी. I am not saying Rahul Gandhi is stupid. He may well be. Neither am I saying that Rahul Gandhi is not a leader. Obviously, he is for people in his party. But if you look at the attributes, what are these attributes? Yeah, whenever there's a problem, he's not in the country. See, every human being is allowed to attend a wedding, but the fact is he's never in the country. Number two, he may be working very hard, but he works hard periodically. What Modi did, and this is where I'm going to give you the second para of our brand discussion this evening. Great brands change the competitive landscape. They change the competitive playing field. Before Modi came to power, politicians were a relaxed lot. शाम को पार्टियां होती थी, शराब होता था, शराब होती थी, kebab होते थे. They would socialize, they would meet. What did Modi do when he became prime minister? He implored the bureaucrats to stop playing golf. He said people will work hard. He himself does a punishing schedule of 18 hours. Then when an Indian looks at Rahul Gandhi, says, yeah, ye to sala kaam hi nahi karta. Although he must be working hard. Although he has every business to attend a wedding. But when you're compared to a brand that is working furiously, who is 20 years older than you, then people begin to ask, यार इसको क्यों वोट दें, ये हमारा क्या कर लेगा, और अगर हमें परेशानी हो और ये बैंकॉक हो तो फिर देश का क्या होगा. That's number two. Number three, until Modi became prime minister, people, और मैं ये हर वक्त ये बात बोलता हूं कुशल, भारत सचमुच बदल गया है. ये वो अंग्रेजों का भारत नहीं है, ये लटियंस नहीं है. And see, all his barbs at Lutyens Delhi were to tell people that, look, I'm talking about a new India, एक नया भारत. उस नए भारत में कल के लिए कोई जगह नहीं है, जो कल होता था उसके लिए कोई जगह नहीं है. So he has very deftly changed the landscape of comparison by way of which you will evaluate one brand versus the other. So that, to my mind, is a very important and telling issue.
So what do you make of, I accept that he's not a pan-India leader, but in baby steps to ली जा रही हैं उस दिशा में. What do you make of Kejriwal if you are looking at Kejriwal as a brand?
Kejriwal, I will say this today publicly, is the only challenger to Modi. If you look at someone from an opposition perspective, I'll tell you why. He's a disruptor. He has nothing to lose. He has equally a squeaky clean image. And he plays the victim very well. Where Modi plays the courageous person, he says, हम तो गरीब हैं, हम तो कुछ नहीं है, जो कर रहे हैं आप कर लो, ये तो मोदी जी नहीं करने देते, ये तो भाजपा नहीं करने देती. He is the only real challenger. You mark my words. If there is a challenger to Modi, it is Arvind Kejriwal. Because Kejriwal also understands the use of media. He also understands victimhood. He also understands playing the David to Modi's Goliath. So he is positioning himself very smartly. And also remember, yaar, uske party ke naam mein aam aadmiyata hai. So his positioning is very strategic. Now, he is also prone to stupidity, which, by the way, every human being is. You and I are equally stupid at times here. So I don't begrudge him that. But the fact is that in the entire political spectrum, he's the real challenger, because he's also using his mind. All the cover up and all that is all part of the game. Remember, one of the most consummate politicians who now sadly is out of the race was Lalu Yadav. We laughed at him. We laughed with him. We thought he was stupid, but he was a very, very clever politician. What? He was chief minister 3 or 4 times of Bihar. Not an easy state to run. So, sometimes what they do is completely in contrast to what they actually are. And they are also doing it because they understand public sentiment. A. B. Give Kejriwal credit. Today, whether you like it or not, Delhi has the best public education system. The Mohalla clinics, you ask anyone in the healthcare business, they will tell you they're a huge hit. Pani, water, is going to places in Delhi which it never went to earlier. On electricity, has performed well. Now let's see whether Punjab will be his Waterloo or will be his triumph. But in Delhi, he has delivered.